So my title, I don't know if it's up there already, but my title today is When God Says Wait. About 100 years ago, I took homiletics. Anybody know what homiletics is? It's the classes where you learn how to preach, you learn how to teach, and when they give you the thing, and you learn how to do it. You know, you learn that you have a subject, and I'm supposed to get you interested and hook you in, and then I pull out a biblical text, and we go through the text, and then I extract 3 salient points, and then we send you home on time. That's one of the main goals of speaking. And generally speaking, you're not really supposed to speak in the first person too much, because you don't want to get up there and just talk about yourself. Well, this is going to be a little messy today, maybe, because I'm going to preach in the first person. I'm going to speak in the first person. You know what? We've all faced disappointments, haven't we, of various kinds? Anybody? Well, you don't have to raise your hand, but welcome to life, you know. And so I'm currently going to school on something, and I thought, if I get together with other people, I'm just gonna suspect that so are you. No, this isn't like me giving you some great stuff. This is us on a journey together as a family, and maybe this is your first day. Well, welcome to the family. You're in. Like, good. Well, you're in. So we're all family, and we're all on a journey together, and so that's where I'm going to go. So I hope that's okay. I hope that doesn't freak you out or anything. I'm just going to give it. It's not all buttoned up. It's just kind of messy. So I'm going to make a confession as we start. I don't wait well. Are you a good waiter? Do you love waiting? No. Like standing in lines, for example. You can ask my wife. When we come to the grocery line, we come to the line at immigration, we come to the line to get across the bridge, we come across the traffic line. I choose the shortest line. Well, anybody that's ever driven with me knows that always goes terribly wrong. At the border, I always have terrorists like in the car right in front of me. And, the whole SWAT team comes and everything, and I'm just sitting there waiting. That's just the way it goes. I hate traffic. I hate my blood pressure goes up. I hate being on hold on the phone. Don't you love that? I did some research with Timex. Now, I know a lot of you don't even know what a bunch of you know what Timex is, but they, used to bring us the time. And so here's the Timex survey. 20 minutes a day the average person spends waiting for the bus or train. 32 minutes whenever they visit a doctor, and more on this later. 28 minutes per day waiting in a security line. Okay, when they travel. 21 minutes, this one's going to hurt a little. 21 minutes waiting for a significant other to get ready. Okay, so don't look at the person beside you right now. Did you know, there's this thing called the Atlantic Survey. The average commuter spends 38 hours each year waiting in traffic, but big city commuters, it's at least 50 hours. Stopped in traffic. The New York Times say Americans annually spend 37 billion hours waiting in line. I'm just trying to depress you. Time Magazine says you probably spent 13 hours on hold last year. 13 hours. Oh, man. Did you know that's 53% here, it says, I better read this and get it right, say that they spend 10 to 20 minutes on hold each and every week. That 15 minutes or so per week adds up to 780 minutes a year, 13 hours annually, spent waiting for a company that swears on their automated, message, "We care about your business." To answer the darn phone. Whoops, can you say darn? You probably never do. So, I'm going to give you a little something from north of the border to make you feel better about yourselves. I don't know. There's an annual report from Canada. It was called Waiting Your Turn, Wait Times for Healthcare in Canada. This is going to be good. This is going to be really good. This report estimates that 1 in 34 Canadians might actually right now be in pain, and I quote, be in pain, off work, or suffering from depression as they wait their turn for treatment. No kidding. Like, seriously. Okay, that's almost sounded political. I'm going to stop. I hate to wait. I don't do waiting well. Do you? It takes patience, and patience is not something I'm naturally long on. Like, I just wasn't born with patience. So is anyone here wrestling then with God, having recently received a wait notice from Him? Do you feel, and church is a great place to be honest. It's a great place. It's a place to be transparent. Do you feel like He's put you on hold? Or maybe He stuck you in line and you're over here? So if you have no worries, no concerns, no stress, no questions, lots of money, healthy relationships, dreams fulfilled, and don't need anything, then this message is not for you. So you need to go get in line early at the Mother's Day brunch. Like, just go. But if you can relate it all to this guy, this person, we're going to read what he said in a minute. Today's message is for you. It's a modern translation, I know, but here's what someone wrote. My soul is drowning in darkness. How long can you, the Eternal One, let things go on like this? Come back. Lead me to your saving light. Rescue me, because I know, I hope, I think you are truly compassionate. I've been reading the Bible through in a translation that's quite interesting called The Voice. And, you could give it a try some year. It's a Bible that is written sort of like a script. So you can tell who's speaking and when they're speaking. A lot of times, like you're reading a book like Isaiah or something, it's hard to know, is it God speaking, is it Isaiah speaking? Is he speaking to Isaiah? Is he speaking to the children of Israel now? Is he speaking that kind of thing? Well, The Voice helps. It says, to the children of Israel, right now, Isaiah said, okay, so anyway, this is from The Voice. Please, God, no more yelling. No more trips to the woodshed. Would you treat me nice for a change? I'm so starved for affection. Can't you see I'm black and blue? I'm beat up badly in bones and in soul. Can't you? God, and listen to yourself say this. God, how long will it take for you to let up? Break in, God, and break up this fight. Next one. Here we go. If you love me at all, could you get me out of here? I'm no good to you if I'm dead, am I? I can't sing in the choir if I'm buried in the tomb. I got to be honest with you, God. I'm tired of all this. I'm so tired. My bed has been floating on my tears for 40 days and nights. On the flood of my tears, my mattress is soaked, soggy with tears, and the sockets of my eyes are black holes. Nearly blind, I squint and I grope. How long, Lord? Are you going to forget me forever? How long are you going to hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts? And day after day of sorrow in my heart, how long? Are you going to let my enemies triumph over me? Look on me and answer, God. You ever read the Psalms? They're honest. They're super honest. Sometimes we say, I don't know how to pray. I don't know what to say. Say what you're feeling. Sometimes we don't like to talk this way in church because, we want it to be kind of rah-rah. Sorry, not a super rah-rah day. But you know what? When I'm feeling like that, and honestly, I am right now, I got to go back to, okay, what do I know? Like, what do I know? What am I sure of? We used to sing a song, didn't we, Aunt Pat? I know whom I have believed, and I'm persuaded that he's able. I mean, like when we sing songs, and I was trying to give a little bit of a instruction, But we don't just sing songs up here. I mean, Cameron, is his name Cameron, the worship leader, or Lori, or somebody, or all this worship team. We're not up here just having fun. We're here to make declarations, to remind ourselves, this is what we believe. And sometimes if you walk in and you're having a hard time believing, then listen to the person beside you. Let them sing. So I have to go back to what I believe about God. Well, here's the first thing. I told you I'm going to speak in the first person. So you can just nod, yes, that's me, or no, I'm not there yet. He exists. He exists. Hebrews tells us anyone who comes to God, here's the prerequisite, must believe that he exists and that he rewards anybody who earnestly seeks him. So right now, that's your choice. What do you believe? And today I'm just standing here and telling you, I believe that he exists. And we sang it earlier. I believe in the Son. I believe in the risen one. He's sovereign. I believe he's sovereign. Our God is in heaven and he does whatever pleases him. You thought about that? And sometimes I actually have trouble with this. Because if he's sovereign and if this is true, let's just say this is true. If this is true, he does whatever he wants to do. Well, sometimes he and I are at odds. And he's not fast enough or doing what I think he should. Maybe I could remind us that Jesus said, I have an idea here. He said it in the garden. He said, if there's any way that this cup I'm about to drink could pass from me, I'd like that. Jesus. And then he said, I think, seriously, one of the most beautiful prayers in the Bible. Nevertheless, not my will. And I'm gonna go with your plan. Well, sometimes we're going through things. I wonder, I wish this cup could pass from me, whatever my cup is. Think about your cup. I mean, we all have, some of us are trying to ignore it right now, but we all have a cup. What is it? And we wish we didn't have to drink it, maybe. And sometimes this causes us to despair, but then we realize, wait a minute, yeah, he does what he wants. And that could be awful scary if not for the next thing I believe about him. He's loving. He loves me. If he loves me, I can trust him. God is love. That's what he's made of. That's his essence. That's his character. That's his nature. It's hard to understand with our frail thinking, but I mean, has he ever done one thing that wasn't out of love? One thing? And wasn't out of love for me? Wasn't out of love for you and our families? God is love, and this is how he proved it. This is how he showed it. He showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son. This is called the gospel, and we need to rehearse it every week, all over and over and over again. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we all might live through him. Here's another presupposition I have, and something I'm standing on, and I'm not going to let go of. He's wise. That means he does the right thing. My Bible, how many times have I read, his ways are higher than mine. His thoughts are greater than mine. He's wise. He's good. He knows. Abraham first said it. Might have said it once in Genesis 18. And my mom, Irma Pedde, Said it hundreds of times. And it used to annoy me to death. Because I had all those teenager questions, and I had all those young adult problems, and I had all of that stuff, and I had that frustration of why this, and why that, and why this, and why'd you put up with that, Mom, and why did that happen to us? And do you have any of these? And my mother, I used to think, when I was in high school, I used to think, you're so naive, Mom. She would always just pull it out kind of like, sort of like a scripture gun and shoot me with it. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right, David? I'd say, Mom, that's not good enough. She said, you just don't get it. Next time I come with a question with louder volume and more frustration, I finally said, yeah, I know. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? Well, I was going to show you a picture, but last time I was here was just a little over a year ago, and my mom had just been diagnosed with inoperable, incurable pancreatic cancer. And so Uncle Don, my Uncle Don right there, drove me. Remember, he drove me downtown, or down to the wharf, and I got on a boat, and I took a ferry ride, I guess, over to Victoria, where my brother lives, and my parents were there for the final visit. We had an absolutely amazing time, and just got to rest and relax with them. And a couple months later, very shortly after, my mom went to the hospital. And then a couple months later, we spent, I went out there, and out there is Edmonton, I'm sorry. I live in Toronto area. Went to Edmonton and hung out with my dad, and lived at his place, my parents' place. And we would go every day to the hospital, of course, multiple times, and stay all day. And I told this to Dan and Lori on the way here. And so just indulge me a minute here on my mom. There was an old guitar at the hospital, and so I fixed it up, brought it into the room, and got to sit with my parents for hours on end. And both of them love to sing, and they love to worship. And the deafer my dad gets, the louder he sings. And my mom would say, Merv, could you tone it down? You're throwing me off. And she sat in her hospital bed, and I sat at the edge with the guitar, and my dad and my mom would lead song after song after song after song, many that some of you would know very well, and you may have not heard in church for 30, 40 years. And we would sing and sing and sing. And finally, my mom would drift off to sleep because she was incredibly weak and tired. And this happened virtually every time. And it'd be really quiet. The nurses had left because they would always gather around when we were singing. And the nurses had left, we'd be by ourselves. And my mom, and I just got to do this, try not to have the emotion of it, but my mom would, in agony, end of life. And you guys have been through this with your family, and if you haven't, you will be, and with yourself. And it's all kind of boiled down to that moment. And you hear this little squeaky voice, and she would sing, when peace like a river. And we'd sing together, it is well with my soul. That's somebody that can't wait to meet her Father. That's somebody that says, well, David, shall not the judge of all the earth do right? So I better move on. We know, and I've looked at the scripture over and over again, we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And to be transparent, all of these presuppositions have been challenged in me. But I keep coming back and saying, nope, I believe. Now, you know, God does say yes. Do you know that? Yes. God says yes. Sometimes we make a request, it's hard to say, make a request, and God says yes. Now, perhaps your perception that he never does, but he does. Now, you may have got that idea from the 10 Commandments, you know, because there are 8 no's and 2 yeses in the 10 Commandments. So maybe we got that idea. Well, here's one. Here's something God has said to us. One of the scribes came and heard them arguing, and recognizing that he had answered them well, asked them, "What's the commandments that's the foremost of all?" What is God saying yes to? Jesus. And Jesus said, "Hear, O Israel." Many of you could quote this. "The Lord, our God is one Lord, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, your mind, your strength. The second is like this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself." John put it this way, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, even as I've loved you, that you also love one another. By this, all men will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." We've heard these verses so many times, that we forget what it means. When you don't know what to do this. Maybe a quick question for our church. Are we engaging our culture and loving them? Are we known more for what we hate or what we love? Are we known more for what we say no to and stand against, or what we say yes to and what we do as we put our love into action? God's yes is going to flow out of those basic things. I need to hurry up a little bit. God does say no, you know. He sometimes says no. The couple in the garden, they had one no. One. Excuse me. He's written his law on our hearts, and we know from his word. And intuitively, don't we? We know when God's saying no. Our problem is that it challenges our sovereignty, our personal sovereignty. And we forget that no is God's loving response. Don't touch the stove. That's a loving commandment. So wait is my least favorite answer. When I have a request from God, no or yes, but wait I hate. I'm going to quote myself. Ready? I wrote this in my journal a long time ago. When I'm asking God a question, when I need wisdom or direction or provision or anything else from him, my favorite answer is most often yes. My second favorite answer is most often no. Because at least I can move on confidently knowing that he shut the door and it mustn't have been the right thing. But by far, my least favorite answer is wait. And God is saying wait to me right now in several areas of my life. Big areas. How about you? You know, what are you waiting for? What answer, provision, or healing, or are you waiting for? Are you getting a little impatient? As am I. Got to spend a little time with Donnie Neary and yesterday. And he's a huge fan of this thing called irony. That's his favorite thing. It's his love language, irony. Right? So I'm going to just give you some irony. After you just heard my testimony, I'm going to read you my life verse. This is the scripture that God stamped on my heart when I first got to know him in my early 20s. This is what I have quoted this every day since then and prayed it for myself every day. Want to hear it? It's pretty ironic. Ready? It's found in Psalm 40. I waited patiently for the Lord. That's my life verse. He inclined to me, though. He heard my cry. He brought me My life story. He brought me out of the miry clay. He set my feet on a rock. He made my footsteps firm. And when he was done doing that, when he kept doing that, then you know what he did? Then he put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and will fear and will trust. Waiting is hard. Oswald Chambers, I think, said, waiting is more difficult than walking. Waiting requires patience, and patience is rare. It's fine to know that God builds hedges around his people when the hedge is looked at from a viewpoint of protection. But when the hedge is kept around one until it grows so high that he can't see over the top, and he wonders whether he's ever going to get out of this little tiny sphere of influence and service in which he is pent up, it is hard for him sometimes to understand why he may not have a larger environment than this little one. It's hard for him to brighten the corner where he is. God has a purpose in all of his holdups. There's tons of biblical examples. There are many. There are those who waited poorly at times. David. Google search the word Bathsheba and then read that story, and you will realize that David wasn't waiting well. Abraham, the father of many nations, an amazing guy, amazing. But he and his wife got together and couldn't quite wait for the promise. Google search Ishmael. There's consequences to getting ahead. King Saul, he went ahead. Great king, and I have to rush through this a little bit, but great king. He went ahead, wouldn't wait, went ahead with the sacrifices after winning the battle, didn't wait for the prophet, completely did everything out of order. What happened to him, I'm quoting 1 Samuel, it says, when Saul saw the Philistine army, he was afraid, terror filled his heart. He inquired of the Lord, but the Lord did not answer him. The Lord said, wait. And you know what he did? He said, okay, fine, find me a woman who's a medium. I'll just go the satanic route. It's so sad. It's tragic. There are those who waited well, though. And I gotta include David in the waiting well group. He had long hours tending flocks, getting to know his Creator in obscurity. All the while he developed skills in music and warfare. Interesting combination. Then he killed the giant and he delivered his people. He was taken into the palace to serve the king. He was promised the throne. Then he got kicked out of the palace. Then he ran for his life and he waited for years and years and years and years. And in the meantime, you know what he did? He wrote psalms, laments, praise for us to sing, for us to quote this morning. A man after God's own heart, a great king. Joseph was promised the rulership of his family. Remember him? Well, it didn't go well. He was left for dead, sold into slavery, falsely accused, spent years in prison, and eventually became the second ruler of Egypt and delivered his people. And the Messiah came out of that guy's line. Anna. Yeah, just read her story in Luke. I was going to quote the whole thing, but she was widowed, and I believe she spent, until she was 84. She spent the rest of her life after she was widowed in the temple. And you know what she was doing? Waiting. And she waited so beautifully that when she saw him, she said, there he is. You are our promise. You are the Messiah. Jesus waited, didn't he? He's our example. He endured this life to fulfill the will of the Father. And we're supposed to have the same attitude as him, as he had. Read Philippians 2 someday. And God himself, God waited. Every time I come to worship, I think of the story that we call the story of the prodigal son, where God is giving an illustration of what he's like. And he's the father in the story. And he's waiting at the end of the driveway. What's he waiting for? The prodigal to come home. The one that cheated him. The one that's defamed his name as far and wide as he could. The one that the rest of the family came out. You know this story, and that's a paraphrase, but I'm going to paraphrase, but the older brother came out and said, "Dad, come on. It's your birthday, Dad. Like, we got a cake back in the house. We're partying here in your honor. You are being so rude. Dad, leave him. He hates us. He hates you. Hates our family. Stole our money. Stole my money." And the prodigal father, the father of the prodigal, stood there and waited. So in what areas has God said, wait to you? We need to wrap it up. And what are you doing in the meantime? Here's some encouragements from my own life. Here's what I'm doing. I'm talking with him. Not all the conversations are pleasant, but I'm talking, I'm spending time. Sometimes my emotions towards him are raw. Sometimes I have feelings of doubt. But I keep going. I'm being honest with him. I'm telling him how I feel. I'm trying to avoid complaining. But I am telling him my frustrations. I'm asking him questions. And when I ask him, then I listen and I act. Here's some of the questions. Is there anything you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Is there anything you don't want me to do? No. What are you doing in me? Is there any areas of disobedience in my life? Then I'm obeying his yeses. I'm trying to have a posture of obedience. I'm trying to do the last thing he told me. What's the last thing he said? I read it. Go into all the world, make disciples. That's the last thing he told you and me. Are we doing it? Are we doing the last thing he said? I'm trying even slightly open doors. I'm not sitting by the phone. In my case, I'm actually looking for work. I'm avoiding his nose. His nose. I'm trying not to run ahead. And I'm enduring the wait. Because they who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They'll mount up with wings like eagles. They're going to run and not be weary. They're going to walk and not faint. And God will not fail us. I was going to ask, do you believe that? But just ask yourself. We need to move on a little bit. But we're going to sing. Lori's going to lead us in a song. And I already mentioned, maybe you won't be comfortable with this because maybe you don't feel like you're part of the family. But if you go to someone's home, you just fit in with their rituals and whatever they do. So what we do, I think, sometimes is just as an act of, yep, that's me. Sometimes we get up from our chairs and we come down here. There's nothing special about it, but it's just about that act of saying, okay, why don't we have the musicians come up? I'm gonna say yes to you, Lord. And so there won't be a lot of guidance here. And then Pastor Dan's going to close us. But let's respond. That's all I'm saying. Let's respond. Let's respond to the Lord. So God, we just thank you for your presence with us. We believe you're here. We believe you're good. We believe you're sovereign. We believe you're loving. And we thank you that you're for us. And so we do ask that you'd have your way in us today, this afternoon and tonight, and as we continue. In Christ's name.
Thanks for watching the sermon today. I know that several watch the sermons online, and from time to time people ask, how can I help? Well, we're working to put some gear in place, some software, and some equipment to make those online broadcasts even better. The first chunk, the first increment, is a $1,000 increment. So maybe you can help us with a small gift. Maybe you can help us with the whole thing. Once we're through with that first 1,000 increment, then I've got a couple of $2,000 increments that'll follow that. So if you'd like to help, you can go to our website, cpnorthshore.com/give, and you'll find information on how you can mail a gift or even make a gift online. Thanks for considering helping us and helping us to make these online broadcasts even better.